How did it come to this? No one asks the question anymore. By the 22nd century, global climate change was irreversible. In the United States, efforts to deform the terrain to protect its shores were successful. But the Midwest became a wasteland. We were still one country, but increasingly divided. The people of the East and the West sought two distinct paths of evolution. Our definition of what it meant to be human changed, and along with it, what it meant to be an American. Tensions rose, nations chose sides, and people stopped asking, how did it come to this? How could it not?
Welcome back to our Nostalgia Gaming Series Season 2, Episode number 2. Today we are going to be reviewing a classic from 2008. This is a third-person shooter / action-adventure game created by LucasArts, which is, of course, notorious for creating the various Star Wars franchise video games that have been released throughout the years on a variety of different platforms. So this has been probably one of my favorite video game companies and most nostalgic from my childhood, just because I've always been an extremely popular fan of the Star Wars franchise, and LucasArts has played a major role in my childhood. So that's why I've decided to pick up Fracture back in 2008, which was released on the PS3, I believe, as well as the Xbox 360, but don't quote me on that specifically. But yeah, it's a really amazing third-person shooter game. It's kind of different compared to other third-person shooters. I'm going to kind of talk briefly about the storyline. It's kind of a very standard storyline, and one of the great things about LucasArts is they're kind of able to give you that intergalactic space, like battle music, when you're playing throughout the various levels within the game, so that's another reason why I really enjoy Fracture. And so the storyline is basically, after years of environmental pollution and a lot of climate change, it actually caused the water levels to rise throughout the world and split the United States right in half. So there's the eastern half, of course, and then the western side. And the western side was taken over by a tyrannical leader who's actually experimenting with human biology or human genetics and altering DNA. So he's created this cyber-human army, and he's actually threatening the eastern side with their peaceful tactics. They decided not to play God and kind of just go the route of Mother Nature. So the western side of the United States is kind of launching a civil war. So that's kind of where this game picks off. It's, I believe, the 22nd century. It's that this game takes place in. So it's a very unique setting. You're able to kind of experiment with some different weaponry, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the terrain deformation. So throughout this game, you'll notice there's various terrain-altering equipment, such as the Entrencher, which is kind of like the bread and butter of the terrain deformation. The Entrencher can be used to raise or lower ground in the heart of battle, which is really useful when you're creating cover where there was none, and helping you to reach previously inaccessible areas. So that's one of my favorite weapons throughout the entire game. There's also tectonic grenades, which alter the land as well. Spike grenades, subsonic grenades, vortex grenades. So yeah, overall it's just a wide variety of weapons that are basically at your disposal throughout the entire storyline. And you kind of play as... It really reminds me of a Gears of War character. The main character that you play as, I really don't recall his name, but that's kind of irrelevant, because this is mainly focused on the terraforming and just overall just changing the battlefield throughout the entire game. So it's really cool. I'm a huge fan of this game just because of the land deformation and how you're able to terraform with the Entrencher and a variety of different weapons and take out enemies. So, and another thing you'll notice is there's run-and-gun weapons such as assault rifles and light machine guns. There's various turrets placed throughout the level. You'll have to actually kill the enemy that's manning the turret, and then you're able to take it over. I think it's called the Dragon's Breath turret. So that's another useful tactic. You could take down enemy gunships. And then, of course, there's other weapons such as the Bulldog, which is the standard issue assault rifle. It's best used at close range, of course, to medium range. Then you have the Bangalore. You could blow apart structures and enemies alike with this powerful rocket launcher. The Bangalore fires off a single missile with large destructive capabilities. So that's another weapon that you'll see throughout this gameplay. That was actually quite useful for taking out groups of enemies as well as large gunships. There's also the Black Widow, Scorpion, and the Raptor, which is another it's another rifle that's very powerful throughout the game. So yeah, this is just a really amazing game by LucasArts, and it's kind of underrated. Not a lot of people know about this game in particular or remember even playing it back in good old 2008. So that's why I wanted to feature this as episode number 2 in our Nostalgic Gaming series, because this series is going to focus on not only classic games from my childhood, which were a major part of my life, and I believe they're worth mentioning in this series, but it's also going to feature some kind of obscure games that you might not have heard about. And I believe this is probably going to be one of those video games because it's just, it's kind of hidden on the marketplace. And it was during that time period in 2008, it was kind of over popular with Call of Duty and some of those other shooters, and not so much games that were created by LucasArts. So yeah, that's why I wanted to review this game in particular. And you'll remember from Season 1, I also reviewed the Star Wars The Force Unleashed, which was another LucasArts game created during 2008, I believe. So this was a very popular time for the third-person genre of video games, as well as the first-person shooters. So it was interesting transitions during this time, really innovative video games, and I think Fracture is one of them, especially for the destruction in regards to buildings and other structures placed throughout the maps. You could really destroy them or even go underneath certain areas or throw spike grenades to open up different bridges and gates. So it's just really interesting, guys, and I think it's worth checking out for sure. So overall, everyone, I have to say for this second episode of our Nostalgia Gaming series, it was definitely an improvement over the first video. I'm going to try to improve each episode within this particular series. And so I just have to say, just in conclusion, Fracture is a really great third-person action-adventure / shooter. There's a variety of different things to accomplish throughout the game. Of course, there was a multiplayer mode, but I never really played it back in the day, so I really can't comment on that. But I believe that there was some deathmatch style modes that you could play with up to 12 different players in a single game, so that was pretty interesting, although I didn't actually get to experience that when back in 2008. So another thing I wanted to mention is there's over 12 interesting and unique Terra Deformation weapons that I mentioned. I kind of ran through them briefly, but that's definitely the highlight of this LucasArts video game, and is probably the only reason that you guys want to check it out these days, because a lot of games really don't offer that. So, but anyways, the next episode, episode number 3, is going to be another PS3 video game, and then we're actually going to head over to the early 2000s and visit some of my earlier video games from my childhood, some classic GameCube games, so it's going to be very interesting. Anyways, thank you for watching today's installment of NGS Season 2 on Sunday, April 10th, 2022, and I will have more videos throughout the week, including episode number 3 of our NGS. So thank you for watching today's video, and stay tuned for more content coming soon.